Hi, so family. Welcome back to my channel. We talk about all things to heal, grow, and evolve. And today I want to talk about how trauma affects us genetically, how trauma affects, alternates, and even mutates our DNA. And I want to talk about this because it's been a common thing I've been seeing recently on the internet. It's always been a common topic of discussion, but I wanted to make a video about it for people who are curious about like generational trauma, karma, fears, and all of these things, and how they're passed on to bloodlines. If this is your first time watching, welcome. My name is Sage, and on this channel, we talk about things such as spirituality, metaphysics, and African history. So if that's something that you're interested in, just keep on watching. So when it comes to trauma and DNA, let me say this first, that how memories are stored in our DNA. Our genetic codes is just a bunch of information that is stored, and we can store memories from past lives and from past bloodlines from our ancestors. So, intentionally, there are some genetic codes and information that our ancestors have created these memories for us to be passed down from generation to generation to help us understand who we are as spiritual beings, help us connect more with our genetic gifts, because all of us have spiritual gifts through our bloodline specifically, and we have spiritual gifts that connects us to our destiny and our soul mission. And some of them, they can be integrated, they can be connected with each other, but we all have spiritual gifts that are from our bloodline, and these memories are information to help us connect more to these genetic gifts, activate them, and utilize them in our everyday lives. However, due to some circumstances, this information and these memories were forgotten and lost, and we've forgotten how to tap into these memories in our DNA, activate our spiritual gifts that are specifically to our bloodline. And these information that is within ourselves has been overwritten and replaced with fear-based thoughts, limiting beliefs, traumatic events that happened to our ancestors. These things have been passed down through generation to generation to generation. And it's a cumulative thing of what our ancestors went through, what our great grandparents, grandparents, our parents, and all of these traumatic events have been passed down to us. And so all of these traumatic things that our forefathers, our foremothers have experienced is still within our DNA today. So quote unquote shuts off the good memories and these negative codes of fear, trauma, limiting beliefs are activated, and our information about who we are, our abilities have been shut off. This is how our DNA becomes mutated, because it is new information being overwritten with old information. It's new codes being overwritten. And every time a new code in our DNA cells has been overwritten, it causes an alteration or a mutation. We all have mutated cells in our DNA no matter what, and our body compensates for that. However, when it comes to memories, information, and our spirituality, that information that connects us to divine source, divine God, these things are still activated and running within our bodies. And these cycles of response patterns, behavior patterns, traumas, and belief systems will continue to cycle over and over again until someone stops it. That's where you, the chosen one, the spiritual being, is here to break that generational curse, break that generational cycle, and put an end and deactivate these traumatic DNA codes that live within your DNA, that live within your cells. So, one thing I mentioned was generational trauma. Another thing that is within our DNA is also karma, karma from our past lives. I believe in karma. I believe that whatever we have done in past lives, if we're not able to fulfill or release that karma, it will follow us into the next life. So we have karma information. Karma is also energy and is information that is also within our DNA. And the fastest way to burn off karma is to reincarnate on earth. So we are here to also burn off these karma. And so this karma from past lives, and even karma from our bloodline, our family karma is all within us. It's the things that we need to release from our DNA codes. Sometimes we're born into a family that has a bunch of karma within it, karmic memories within our DNA. At times, we have these preconceived notions, we have these response patterns, we have these fear based what if scenarios, things that never even happened to us. We've never experienced these in our lives. These are all passed down due to the experiences of our parents, grandparents, great grandparent, and forefathers. So we need to release this information. We need to release these genetic codes from our DNA to activate these memories that will help us tap into our gifts, tap into our inner universe within us, to really raise our consciousness and raise our awareness about ourselves and within this world. So, how do we do that? It comes with breaking the generational cycle. There has to be some type of expansion within ourselves and within our family, within our generation. Something has to change, something has to give. There needs to be an expansion of awareness, expansion of consciousness. Without consciousness, nothing can change because you don't even know who you are. You don't know what is running about in your family. You don't even realize what the toxic thing in your family even toxic in the first place because it's so norm. It's become the norm because it's these are genetic codes that have been activated for damn near eons. So they see it as norm. They don't see it as a problem. They don't see it as a toxic cycle. Even if there is a situation to the problem that is right in front of us that has to do with breaking this cycle, our minds can reject it. Our minds can reject the solution because these codes are still active in our DNA. But this is where self awareness and consciousness comes in. Going outside of the box, doing something out of the norm that is within yourself and within your family. Because we only know what we've experienced, we only know what we know. And so going outside of that is pretty much the unknown. But the unknown can have a bunch of answers, the unknown can have a bunch of solutions that will break this cycle, that will break this toxicity. Just a few examples of generational curses, generational toxicities, things that are passed down within DNA. The biggest one is definitely poverty mindset, physically, financial poverty. There's also health issues, high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes. I see like people going to jail a lot in the family, drug addiction. These are just some examples of generational cycles or whatever you notice in your family that is very toxic and you see that it is a common thing that goes on within your family, but yet everyone sees it as normal. Nobody really talks about it. It's kind of just swept under the rug and they just act like if it's just a normal, ordinary thing that just is a casual, ordinary event in our everyday lives. So it comes down to you breaking that cycle, you having that awareness that this is not a normal thing that should be activated within our family. This is not a normal belief system that should be activated and be running amok in the family, and you making a stop to that. Unfortunately, we can't really change family. We can't really convince or fix family members who are still walking around with this limiting belief systems, with these activated traumatic codes in our bodies, because especially the older ones, like the elders, you can't change their mind for nothing. It's already set in stone. They already don't see a way out. They don't want to see a way out because that's how they live their entire lives. That is their norm to them. And so something different, a change, will be very fearful because they are not aware of what a change will look like. Even if it's for the better, even if they've lived a miserable life, a life of suffering, a life of misery, if that were to change for the better, a lot of them would not agree to it or wouldn't want to change it because they are not sure what it looks like for them. They've been comfortable in this misery and this poverty for years now, and that is all they know. So, of course, they're not going to agree with change because they are still stuck in that mindset. Those genetic codes have been really running in their lives. So, you can't really change your family. You can only change yourself. And in doing so, that is when the next generation will be healed. It comes with you and then healing the people who come after you. You healing yourself is also healing your ancestors because our ancestors live within us. Our ancestors' DNA is within us. So as we heal our own DNA, our ancestors' DNA is also being healed as well. So it's healing the ancestors and you're also healing the descendants as well. So this is what I call generational healing. You put an end to that cycle. You're releasing those informations out of your body because you put an end to it. You stop that cycle of poverty, stop that cycle of health issues, stop that cycle of going to jail or drug addiction. And you teach the next generation to prevent those codes from being activated. The fact that you've released that within your own body and you've healed that, that means that you have released those codes, that information of trauma, of poverty mindset, of self-limiting beliefs, of toxic response patterns. You release that out of you. So the next generation will not be born with that same information, will not be born with that same karma. And because of that, they are born with more activated DNA within them. They are born with more spiritual gifts. They are born with more information about themselves, and they can tap into it a much easier rate because they don't have all of these other codes, all of these other information blocking them from reaching that. How else can we stop these traumas in our DNA? I kind of already mentioned it with the ancestors, with ancestor veneration. So, what is ancestor veneration? This is caring for our ancestors, giving our ancestors thanks, working with our ancestors. It's just the simple fact of acknowledging that we have ancestors watching over us, protecting us, and guiding us, that passes down information, passes down wisdom, and how to tap into our gifts. It's the acknowledgement and it's the gratitude and honoring them, not calling them demons, not saying that they're dead, that we have no business with them anymore. We still work with them in the afterlife. We work with their energy. And we work with the ancestors who have good intentions for us because not everyone in our family has good intentions. So we work with the ancestors with energy of positivity, energy of love, energy of guidance. Those who have crossed over and have tapped into their higher state of consciousness because those are the family, those are the people in our bloodlines who want to see our family evolve, that want to see the greatest and best out of our family because not everyone in our family, not all of our ancestors want to see us evolve, want to see us do greatness. They don't want, not all of them want us to tap back into our powers, unfortunately. So, ancestor veneration is working and communicating with these ancestors of higher realms, higher consciousness. And I've made a video about ancestor work if you want to watch that to get a little more deeper information on that. Because you are your ancestors' wildest dream. So I need you to walk in that and be in that and know that. And in return, that will bring so much gratitude and so much honor for who you are and the bloodline that you came from. Knowing that you came from greatness, knowing that you came from wisdom, knowing that you came from knowledge and power. This will help you realize yourself, raise up your consciousness once again, and it will heal that information within you and release these toxic things, release these toxic information, these toxic codes in our DNA. In return, activating our true self. Other ways to release trauma from our DNA is, I'm going to say this, shadow work. You need to do shadow work because we have built up programs within our minds, and these programs have been affecting us so much that have altered our DNA. What we think is what we do. What we do is what we see in the external. So realizing what we're thinking, our patterns, where it came from, releasing that, transmuting those thought patterns into something that will align us with the best version of ourselves. It's healing and releasing those codes that are deactivating our true information in our DNA. Many of these programs started in childhood, what our parents taught us. Our parents only knew what they were taught, their own experiences, which came from their parent, which came from their parent, and so forth. So, what they were teaching, a lot of this can be projection from their own childhood, projecting from their own experiences. These things that we were taught in childhood could be things that they have seen when they were a child and how they learned to grow up and how they learned how to survive and live and exist in this world. And many of it could be based off of fear. This information could be based off of living in survival mode, especially if you were born into poverty, that having that generational poverty cycle. You were taught that you have to work, have to hustle just to make ends meet. Or maybe you saw that in your life with your parent working all day just to make ends meet. So you seeing that in your reality is confirming what your parents have taught you about poverty, have taught you about money. And so that things only confirms it, but you have to make that change within your mind that this is an information that they have learned from their own experiences and they only know what they know. So, in order to create a change, break that cycle of poverty, I must also change the way I think about money, about the way I think about how to earn money, about finances to break that cycle of poverty in your life. So, that's also another thing, what you learned in childhood, how you were brought up in childhood is also another thing that really affects our DNA because that comes from your parents, that comes from your grandparents, and so on and so forth. So you have to really dig deep and do a bunch of self assessment and self awareness about yourself. What are your fears? Because a lot of fears are trauma based, a lot of fears are genetic. What are you so fearful of? And is that something that is a common fear within your family, within yourself, within your childhood, within your environment? Where does this fear come from? And what exactly are you fearful from? And how did it start? You have to go back and trace this within your family bloodline. When did this fear start? When did this traumatic thing start? When did this cycle of poverty, cycle of drug addiction, cycle of obesity start? You have to trace that within your bloodline to really figure out what happened, what came about, and how can I change this within myself so the next generation does not have to suffer and go through the same thing. Keeping records of your ancestors, keeping records of the people who came before you, of your bloodline, can really help you understand more about yourself and more about your gifts and abilities. Because the more you know about people and how they worked, what they did, you can kind of pinpoint certain spiritual gifts within your bloodline and activate those gifts. And activating it will help you learn what you need to release. Unfortunately, if we are the generational curse breaker, generational breaker of the cycle, it can come with a lot of resistance and it come with a lot of pushback. That's why I said that you can't change your family. If the way they think is the way they think, that's not going to change because they're so ingrained and so deep into that program. If they do change for the better, even greater. That is amazing, but a lot of times they do not change. So you would have to do the work within yourselves to heal not only yourselves, but the information from your past lives and past bloodlines as well. All right, that is all I wanted to talk about today. I hope this video finds you well. If there's anything specifically you want me to talk about, let me know down in the comments. And until next time, I will see you on the next video. Bye, y'all.